All right, welcome back, everybody, to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. I have been promising all show that we're going to give you some advice on how you choose amongst your options. And at this point, you have them all. It is April 8th when this segment is airing. So here to talk with me about this today is my colleague, Julia Jones, who is a former admissions officer at Brandeis University. Hi, Julia. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Beth. How are you?
Good, and thank you for joining me today to talk about something that we talk about every year, although, of course, there's, as always, right, a unique twist this year to everything. But why don't we start with this? One of the questions that I would say we get in all different ways, we get emails, we have phone calls, we have, well, we used to have face-to-face conversations, but it is the same, which is, how do I choose the best of these options that I have? Which one is the best? Might be my least favorite question because it implies that I have any concept of what that means to you. So talk to me about what you immediately go to when someone asks you about the best.
Right. Well, yeah, and it is true. It's a hard question, and it's really one that the only person who can answer that really is the student.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, and I think it's first you have to really define what does best mean for you.
Right.
I think so often, and I hear that even before we talk about acceptances, it's like, what's the best college for computer science? What's the best college for business? And
Right.
there is no such thing. It's really, what's the best college for you, and you have to define it.
Mhm.
And that's going to be different for everyone. What was a best fit college for me was I'm sure, totally different than it was for you, than
Mhm.
it was for my brother, or for, so I think that's it. You have to really think about, like, what are those criteria? And that, they may be different. Your criteria might be different now than it was when you put in your application, especially in this year when
Yes.
so much has changed. So I think you have to take a step back and say, okay, what was important to me that made me want to apply to these schools? And now what is it that I'm looking for? Has my potential major changed? Has my desire to go far away, has that changed? Or maybe that's increased because you want to, really get out there and see the world after a year of being close to home.
Right.
So, so I think it's thinking about, do you want research? Do you want a great sports scene? Do you want, all of those things that are going to put together your drivers, the things that,
Right.
no matter what they are the reasons why, one school is going to be better, quote unquote, than another.
Right. And I think there are a few things at play here, right? Some people didn't think a whole lot about who went on their college list. And now you have to do that research. I would have argued that you should have done it before, but if you didn't, now you have to. I also like your point about what's changed. Have you adjusted? Maybe your major is the same, but maybe the environment you thought you wanted to be in now is different. And maybe when you started this process, you only wanted to go far from home. And maybe this was kind of a rough year and you actually feel like you want to be close to home, or the reverse. I think another thing that I see happen too is that people have in their heads an idea of which one is the best, but maybe you didn't get accepted to your program of choice. You got accepted to an alternate major. Now, I would suggest that you sort of separate the institution from what you're going to study there, and that what you're going to study is more important than the institution. And so, if you got into your top choice major at two schools and there's a third that accepted you that you really like, but you didn't get into it there, to me, that third school should be out of the mix because the whole purpose of going to college is to study this thing that you want to study. And if you already know what that is, why would you go to the school where they're telling you you can't do it there? Right?
Exactly. And even at, the two schools where you did get into that major, majors are different at different colleges.
Yes.
So, now's the time, even, so if you maybe in putting your list together to apply to was maybe looking at it in a little bit more big picture, kind of broader way, now's the time to get granular. Now's the time to really dive in there and start to look at what is the computer science major looking like at this college? What are the courses that I'll be taking? Are there tracks or concentrations that really sound interesting to me, compared to this one? I think that's where you can really start to dive in and get into the weeds a little bit, because now's the time to do that.
Right, right. I mean, an example I would give is a student who I worked with a few years ago applied as a psychology major to all the schools on his list, which is a pretty broad major. But by the time he was at this point in his senior year, he'd actually taken this really cool course that was focused on abnormal psychology. And he thought that was really cool. It was actually a section of a course, but he'd done all this additional reading because he thought it was so cool. And so one thing that he was able to do was go and look at what are the abnormal psych offerings at each of the schools that admitted me, and found, in fact, that of the 5 schools he was accepted to, 3 of them really didn't have a whole lot on that. They were more focused in other directions, but 2 had really good programs in that area. So, right, looking at the coursework that's available, looking at what your professors specialize in. If there's no professors doing research in abnormal psych, and they have an abnormal psych class, if that's your interest, this is not the school for you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
From your perspective, that research, where do you go to find out more and to get those details?
Sure. I mean, I think I always start with the source, start at the college website. Almost everything on a college website is available for you to look at.
Mhm.
So, you don't have to, you can start with admissions, and that's probably where you started when you were doing your initial research. But now go to the department website, go to the websites for the student clubs and organizations and all of that. I think that's a great way to, you'd be surprised at how much more you can find. You can usually download the course catalog if you
Right.
really want to get into it. So, that's the beauty of things, is that everything's online, and it's not generally password protected. I mean, I think what's there for students is usually there for everybody.
Right.
So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I think, one other piece of advice that I have that we haven't really touched on, is if you know for sure, if you get 5 acceptances and you know right off the top of your head, okay, these 2, I'm not going to accept those offers. This isn't really around choosing, but I would say, please, please let those schools go. We're not talking about wait lists today, but there are so many students sitting on wait lists hoping for the best. If you let those schools go, they will know sooner than later if they are going to go to their wait lists. And it's a kind thing to do. And couldn't we all use a little more kindness in our lives right now? So,
Absolutely.
just an
Yeah.
aside. So at this point, right, normally we would say, okay, and you've narrowed it down. You have 5 acceptances. You've already told 2 schools, I'm not coming. You've got 3 left. What's the next
What
step?
do you do?
You visit.
You visit, or you visit virtually if you can't visit in person. But yeah, I think, and even if you've already visited, some students are like, well, I already went there, I already saw it. And I would I would push back and say, look, your visits now and your research now is, again, different than when it was when you were just trying to decide about applying. So this is your chance. Most schools, if they're having any on-campus events, there are open house programs that are designed specifically for accepted students.
Mhm.
So, when we did open house events at Brandeis, it was a whole day affair, right? It
Huge.
was, panels and, professors there to talk to you, and everything that you could possibly experience in a day on a campus. So take advantage of that. This is the chance to do that. And even I would say that without being able to do it on campus, colleges they're getting creative with what they can do virtually. So they'll be, they can do panels and open house programs online. They can, here to real they're rolling out the red carpet for you. And so
Right.
it's a nice feeling to, sit back and say, okay, the tables have turned. Now it's
Yes.
my turn, to really be, questioning them and shopping for them. So it's really take advantage of that. They are there to help you make your decision.
Yeah, and I think that last year, a lot of schools, I'm sure all of them basically kind of caught flat-footed, sort of, as you said, at Penn, the Penn preview days were a huge thing. Everybody was on campus, professors, student groups, all of the admissions staff. We had schedule for every day. We were welcoming families, huge groups of families, pretty much every day. Last year, nobody knew what the heck was going on. They were not equipped to do these online. That was rough for last year's class. It's really rough for this year's class because at most schools still, it certainly feels like it anyway, they're not welcoming students to campus right now. But what they are able to do, because they've had a lot of months to get ready for this, is plan really involved welcome events. And those are the ones you really should be, as you mentioned, those are the ones to go to. You don't really want to do a run of the mill info session and tour. You are past that now, right? Now is the time to really dig into, is this where I'm going to be for the next 4 years? And schools have set up an incredible array of ways for you to connect with them in order to determine if, if it is really the right fit for you.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
What other advice do you have for students trying to choose amongst their options?
Well, I mean, I think I am still, and I'm old school, but I am a fan of the old fashioned kind of pro con list, right? If you're really struggling, sometimes it is helpful to just sit down and see it on paper or see it on a screen, black and white. What are the things that really, and really add everything. What are the positives and negatives, even if they're minor? Sometimes kind of adding it up can make a difference. And use admissions, not just for visiting for these open house events, but if you want to talk to a professor in a department, you can do that. If you want
Yes.
to, if you want to talk to a student to find out what campus life is really like, or what the sports scene is really like, or the art scene, you can do that. Start with admissions. They are, again, prepared to do whatever they can to set you up with somebody that you can kind of have a Zoom call with, or an in-person call, or in-person visit if possible. But
Right.
if nothing else, it allows you to really ask the questions that you have, and ask the same questions of each school that you're trying to determine which one to attend.
Right. And to your point earlier, the tables really have turned. At this point, it really is, they are rolling out the red carpet for you. Once they've admitted you, they really want you to come. That is their entire focus for the next basically month, is getting you to commit to them by May 1st. So they're there to answer your questions. They're there to do all of those things. So take advantage of that. I love the pro-con list. I've had some funny experiences with students in pro-con lists. We say add everything. Well, I've had kids add just about everything to a pro-con
Sure.
list and been like, okay, well, I'm not sure I needed to know that was a pro for you, but okay. You've
Right.
identified it as such, and you've identified the college where that's a possibility. The other thing that I've had students do is, if they're really struggling to choose among one or two, or maybe even three, is plan a week where on the first day you wake up and you pretend as if you have said yes to school A, and you spend your whole day like, okay, I'm going to school A, and see how you feel that day. Sort of keep a little journal about, I'm excited, or wow, I'm not feeling great about this, or I don't know, it feels like I'm not as excited as I should be. And then you do the same thing with school B the next day, and then if necessary with school C the day after that. And interestingly enough, that actually has helped some of my students kind of say, I really felt the best on this day. And I'm just thinking that my gut is saying this is the best option for me.
I like that. It's like an extended version of the old, flip a coin, and then before you decide, okay, what do you want it to be, or are you happy with, with what it is, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's just a little bit longer version of that. But you're right, it does make a difference, because so much of this, when it comes down to at this point, is partly, yeah, what does your gut tell you?
Right.
What are you really thinking about? And know that also, there are no bad choices here.
Yes.
So
Good point.
I do think that hopefully you put your list together in a good way, and so you've got, the schools that you applied to are all there for a reason. So and the schools have accepted you because they know, hey, you'd be a great fit for us. So now it's just a question of, okay, you're never going to find the perfect anything, and I think that's
Right.
a good advice for a lot of things in life. So it's, again, no job, no college, no person is perfect. So it's just, okay, what's going to be the place where, again, you're going to have that checks enough of the boxes for you, that you're going to have a good experience.
Exactly. And I would make a plea again for doing this research early in the process, and not just putting a school on your list just because, Well, I have students doing research right now, and I have one say to me, he researched 4 schools. He really liked 2 of them, and he was very ambivalent about the other 2. And so I said, okay, so we're going to put these 2 on the list and this one. And he said, well, I'm not ready to let go of that other one yet. And it's just,
Yeah.
if you're ambivalent, it's time. Julia, thank you so much for joining the call today. I appreciate it. And I think you had some great tips for our audience. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Very quickly, we are back next week. As we always are, Sally is going to be hosting. We're going to be talking about prepping to apply as a business major. So if you're in high school and you know you want to be a business major in college, we have some advice for you. We're also going to be answering your questions. So if you have them, send them to us on Facebook, on Instagram. You can email them to us, gettingin.voiceamerica@gmail.com. And don't forget, we're here every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Pacific.